All right, Steeler Nation, it is Friday morning. I got all my trash talk and my hate about the Dallas Cowboys out in my last video. Hopefully you saw that. Looks like that video's doing real well. But now let's talk about the actual game with all hate aside, pretty much. Let's talk about this matchup right now. What's going on, everybody? Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram. Link is down in the box below. The Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers going at it this Sunday night. Heinz Field underneath the lights on Sunday Night Football, man. Should be a great, exciting matchup. As you know, you can always bank on whenever the Steelers and Cowboys play each other that it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a well-fought game, hard-fought game, close game, hardly ever a blowout between these two. Obviously, we know the history between the Steelers and the Cowboys. 3 times they've met in the Super Bowl. Steelers taken 2 out of the 3, as the Steelers won it in 1975 and 1978. And, of course, we don't talk about Neil O'Donnell mailing the Dallas Cowboys their 5th Lombardi in Super Bowl 30 in 1996. So there you go with that. Overall series, the Cowboys have the edge by 1 game, 17-16. That's how close it is between these two. They've been going at it since 1960 with one another. But let's talk about the Cowboys here. You know, they come into this game 2-2 on the season. They're off to a slow start for their expectations. Obviously, everyone who, you know, Cowboy fans and a lot of other football fans out there, they peg the Cowboys to be a Super Bowl favorite every year. Personally, I don't think they're one, just because of how they always come up short in the playoffs. But for their standards, they're off to a little bit of a slow start. They're 2-2 on the season. They beat up on the Cleveland Browns in week 1, which that win isn't looking so impressive right now, you know, because the Browns, well, they're the Browns. And then week 2 got demolished by the New Orleans Saints and Alvin Kamara, 44-19 in their home opener, no less. Then week 3, 28-25, they dropped it to Baltimore. Don't let that score fool you. The Ravens had a 28-6 lead in that game, and the Cowboys would end up making it close, but you know, the Cowboys, again, same deal. They had no answer for Lamar Jackson in the same way that they had no answer for Alvin Kamara the week before. And then last Thursday night, they beat the New York Giants on Thursday night 20-15, but even in that game, the Cowboys had trouble putting the Giants away. The Cowboys could only score 20 points on the Giants, and they really had some tough times stopping the Giants on defense, you know, and that's been the biggest thing that the Cowboys have had going for them over the past couple of seasons is their defense. As their defense so far has taken a really big step back, and that's where I'm actually going to start off with the Cowboys in this video is the defense. You know, under Mike Zimmer, they have a 4-2 type of defense, and they have pride with their third down defense, but really their third down defense has been very underwhelming to start off the season. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But yeah, they run a 4-2 type of defense. And while the pass defense has looked good at times this season, they're coming in with a lot of, you know, key members missing on that defense right there. You know, they've only allowed 4 touchdowns through the air so far. They've come up with 4 picks. So with me, it's going to be a matchup of which pass defense steps up first. I'm looking at a matchup right here, potentially between Trayvon Diggs and George Pickens. Pickens had a really solid game against the Colts last Sunday, 7 catches for 113 yards. And the thing with Trayvon Diggs is that he's very all or nothing. Yes, he's definitely the type of guy to where, you know, he can come up with a turnover and he can get an interception, but the guy gets cooked a lot as well. He, like I said, he's the most all or nothing type of corner. in the NFL. So automatically, my first and most important key to victory for this matchup here is that you got to gash their defense. You take a look at Dallas defensively, 27th in points per game, 25th in yards per pass. I mentioned their third down defense a little bit ago. While they take pride in it, Dallas is just 13th on third down defense this season so far. And then they're 28th in the red zone. While the Steelers, they've kind of, the Steelers so far, while our offense definitely hasn't been perfect and it definitely hasn't been overwhelming everybody, offensively, the Steelers have a better offense than the Cowboys do with defense because we rank better than Dallas in those departments right there, especially with the red zone. So right off the bat, gash their defense right here. Dallas has allowed a lot of big plays on the ground, especially with their run game, as I said. So if there's a game for Najee Harris to finally break out and finally have a potential career game, this is the one to do it because there's absolutely no excuse for Najee Harris last week. I mean, Indy had the 31st ranked defense going into that game, and Najee on 13 carries only had 19 yards. That is inexcusable. It really is. He's just continuing to look more and more like a power back at this point because when he gets the ball, he dances around too much. You don't really get the sense that Najee's going to burst through and he's going to have a big splash play, you know? And I hate to say that about Najee because we've been so patient with him and we tried to give him every leeway and every benefit of the doubt because he had a crappy O-line for the majority of for pretty much all of his career. And we knew the talent that he had because in his first 2 seasons, he had 1,000-yard rushing seasons to start off his career. Really good considering the O-line he had. But this is his 4th season in the league, and he still really hasn't shown any kind of improvement. And it's just giving ammo to the people and the fans of this team that say that he's overrated and that it was a mistake to draft him in the first round because, you know, you got to remember this kid not only came from Bama, but he was a first-round pick in 2021. You're taking a big risk and a big gamble when you take a running back that early in the draft. So if there's a game for Najee to have a career game, I think this is absolutely the game to do it. You know, otherwise, it's just going to be more the narrative that Cordell Patterson and Jalen Warren are definitely the better backs compared to Najee because Cordell Patterson is questionable for this game, and I don't know the status of Jalen Warren as I'm recording this video. But when I saw Cordell Patterson last week against Indy, he had 43 yards on the ground on 6 carries. That's not bad at all. That's a little over 7 yards a carry. You know, I'm looking at Justin Fields using his legs, you know, for this game. He had 55 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns against the Colts last week. This is a Dallas defense that allows, on average, 145 yards per game on the ground. Like I mentioned, they got destroyed by Alvin Kamara in week 2. They had the same problem with Lamar Jackson in week 3. And there were even times where they couldn't stop the Giants' run game a whole lot. And the Giants are depleted in the backfield now because they're missing, you know, Saquon Barkley. But you knew the Giants were going to, you know, I'm not going to get too into that one because I'll just go down the wormhole right there. But a lot of Dallas' starters, similar to the Colts last week, the Cowboys are down a lot of starters as well. DeMarcus Lawrence, he's on IR. Micah Parsons, that's a big loss for them because we know the type of dynamic linebacker he is. He's a spy linebacker type. He's a great pass rusher as well. He's a very physical, athletic freak in nature. He's doubtful with this game with an ankle injury. I don't expect him to play in this one. And in the secondary, DaRon Bland out for this game as well. Great guy that can come up with turnovers right here. And those injuries with me, they open the door for a lot of other guys like Trayvon Diggs, as I mentioned, Marshawn Nealon, he's probably gonna see some time on the edge in this one. First round pick Mozzie Smith, he's gonna get a lot of time in this one as well. He really hasn't lived up to that first round pedigree that the Cowboys hoped he could be, but he's going to get a big opportunity for Sunday night. And of course, you got Malik Hooker in the secondary as well. So, long story short, this Cowboys defense is very, very depleted going into this matchup right here. And that's my biggest key to victory, is that you got to gash that defense and you got to attack Dallas's weakness right there. You guys know how, like, when you're playing a video game and you're going up against the final boss or whatever, and you're trying to figure out a way to defeat the boss, and then you see, like, that big thing that is, like, big and glaring. You're like, oh, how do I defeat this guy? Oh, let's attack, like, that big red target in the center right there. That's the Cowboys right there. They're the video game boss, and you attack their weakness, which is their weak defense going into this game. And that leads me into another big one right here, is that you got to win in the trenches right here. With our offensive line, we just can't catch a break with it, because while we got Isaac Seumalo back and we're going to put him back on the left side, we get him back, but it cost us James Daniels for the whole season now. He is out for the season with an Achilles injury, and it really sucks for him because this was a contract year for him. You figured that if he played well, that he was going to get extended and that we were going to keep him for some more time. It really sucks for James Daniels, and this may affect his free agency as well, because, you look at our O-line. I mean, we're already depleted with Troy Fatanu, our first pick in the draft back in spring. He's out for the season, undergoing knee surgery. Nate Herbig was already banged up with a pec injury. And like I said, at least Isaac Seumalo is going to be back, and, you can put him back on the left side. And, at least Troy Fatanu is going to come back at some point next year, but, he's out for the whole season as well. But it just stinks. We just can't get a break as far as the offensive line goes. So basically, you're looking at, probably moving Dan, you're probably looking at having Dan Moore stay at left tackle. Zach Frazier, that was probably just a rookie jitter type of game that he had against the Colts. But overall, Zach Frazier's been really good at center for us so far. The kid's really been living up to expectations. There's no reason to not have him at center. But the right side, man, it seems like every single Steeler video I talk about, I always mention the right side of the O-line. I mean, the right side is just incredibly weak. I mean, what do you do with it? Do you have Mason McCormick and move him to guard? Because he was pretty much already slated to take the right guard spot from James Daniels for next season. So I guess if Mason McCormick is to get that right guard type of experience, now's the time. It's just not the way I wanted it to happen. But you're probably looking, you're probably looking at Mason McCormick on right guard, and then, oh my goodness, we got to have Broderick Jones on right tackle again, But you have to get really good pass protection in this game, and I think you can do that with Mason McCormick because he's projected to be the long-term guy for us. At least Omar Khan hopes that he is. And yeah, if you can't get anything going on this offensive line, more specifically the right side, the Cowboys, they could use those depth pieces and they could use those backups to have this offensive line implode once again, like it did against the Colts last week. So just don't implode on that right side right there. But winning in the trenches also comes with defense as well. And I'm looking again at TJ Watt making a difference in this one. He was quiet last Sunday against the Colts, but TJ Watt coming off a quiet game where he had no QB hits or sacks in that game, I feel like TJ Watt is a good bounce back candidate for this week. You can always bank on that. But he is going against Zach Martin. Zach Martin is one of the better offensive linemen in the league. You're also going to be dealing with Cooper Beebe, Tyler Smith. He's a strong center, and Tyler Guyton as well, as the Cowboys are down their right tackle, I believe, in this game as well. So Tyler Guyton, I see a big matchup between him and Nick Herbig in this one right here. So if you can win, or no, they're not missing their right tackle. I'm looking at TJ Watt against Terrence Steele in this game. I'm sorry, excuse me right there. TJ Watt against Terrence Steele is going to be a very big matchup for this one. And Terrence Steele has done his job. He's only given up 2 sacks on the season, and he hasn't had Dak Prescott face a lot of the pressure. Dak has only been pressured 14% of the time this season under Terrence Steele. So TJ Watt has to win this matchup here against Terrence Steele. And obviously, like I said, Nick Herbig against Tyler Guyton. So winning in the trenches and not having your offensive line just implode is pivotal for this matchup right here. There's an old saying in football: football is won in the trenches, and that applies to this matchup right here 100%. Next up is stopping the run. So we all know Jerry Jones, okay? I don't need to, it's funny. I hate Jerry Jones, but I love him at the same time. He's a cocky, egotistical, what, as I said in my other video. He brings in the most controversial players of all time. He brings up, just to give the Cowboys more attention, because the Cowboys haven't gotten a lot of attention over the decades or so, He brings those types of players in for the Cowboys to make headlines. He promotes himself to GM. He's never going to fire himself. Any Star Wars fans out there? You know who he is? He's Emperor Palpatine. That's who Jerry Jones is. He's Emperor Palpatine. But at the same time, I love Jerry Jones too. Why is that? Because he gives players extensions like Dak Prescott, $60 million a year for 4 years, a.k.a. Dak is now the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Because while Dak Prescott, I don't believe he's a top 5 quarterback. I don't believe he'll ever be a top 10 quarterback. I don't believe he's elite. I don't think he's a winner. He is a good, and I emphasize the word good. He is a good starting quarterback, okay? He's your average type of quarterback that can win you a game and that he can put up some good stats, okay? But he's never going to be elite. And yet he's the highest paid quarterback of all time. Cowboys had a chance to get Derrick Henry in the offseason. Jerry didn't go after him. Devontae Adams, his name's been flying left and right over the past couple of days. Seems like Jerry Jones isn't budging for him. So he passes. So basically, Jerry Jones, he passes on all the, T. Higgins in the offseason. Jerry Jones didn't make a budget him. So basically, Jerry will give all these guys who are above average to good players lengthy extensions, but he won't go after big names who can really help out the Dallas Cowboys and really catapult them into the Super Bowl contender category. You see, that's what I mean. And he brings back Ezekiel Elliott as well, okay? Which, yeah, Zeke, he shredded us on the ground back in 2016 when the Cowboys came here last, but we didn't have a run defense back then. We have a run defense now, and the Cowboys can't move the ball efficiently. So, like I said, he gives all these players, these above average to good players, extensions, but he won't go after big names, and he brings back guys for nostalgia. That's why I say I both love and hate Jerry Jones at the same time, and he makes Cowboys fans miserable. But, yeah, stopping the run is pivotal for this game here. Zeke, definitely not what he used to be. I would say that he's washed up. I would say that he's a non-factor anymore. So automatically stopping the run right there and containing Rico Dowdle, who I think can, step in here because they don't have Tony Pollard anymore. He had 46 yards on 11 carries last week. with our run defense. Didn't have a good game against the Colts either. Got carved up by Jonathan Taylor all day. 133 yards on the ground for him. So you got to stop the run right here. I don't think you have a problem with that with Ezekiel Elliott. And then, of course, you take a look at Dallas's offense. Let's get on to here. So Dak, he had a nice game against the New York Giants, but really the Cowboys offense really hasn't impressed me this season. They're just, 11th in points per game isn't bad. They're barely out of the top 10. So that's respectable, 11th in points per game. But the rest of it, very underwhelming. 18th in yards per pass, 15th on third down offense, 16th in the red zone. So Dallas's offense has been very quiet to start off the season. And then you look at our defense, our pass defense, we had a tough game against the Colts last week. We allowed 225 yards and 2 touchdowns with our pass defense last week. But, chop it down to whatever you want. This is still, a top defense in the league. I believe we're second in defense so far. Second in points per game, 6th in yards per pass, 11th on third down defense, and then 4th in the red zone. So we definitely outmatched Dallas in defense versus offense on both sides of the ball right here. So, all these advantages lean in our favor right here, but you take a look at a big matchup like JPJ against CeeDee Lamb. My key to one of my bigger key to victories to stopping Dallas's offense here is that if you can contain JPJ or you can contain CeeDee Lamb, Dallas has no chance offensively. CeeDee Lamb is possibly the best receiver in the NFL, and if you limit him, Dallas doesn't have a chance. So this is a huge game for JPJ right here, possibly the biggest game of his young career so far. He didn't have a good game against Michael Pittman last week, where he allowed 7 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And it's not going to get any easier here. So you lock down CeeDee Lamb, Dallas doesn't have a chance. And I believe this pass defense can get it together. It's looked spotty at times. It has had its moments where it's looked amazing and off. This needs to be the night where it looks amazing. You're going up against Mike McCarthy. He runs a West Coast hybrid type of offense, so he gets real innovative with the routes. That's what we saw a lot up there in Green Bay when he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. But I believe you lock down CeeDee Lamb, you win the battle of the trenches. Someone steps up here on offense, because the Cowboys, they do that as well. Brandon Cooks is out for this game. So they're probably gonna be looking at Jake Ferguson, Jalen Tolbert, getting them involved here. That alleviates a lot of pressure off of Dak. But you got to get your guys involved more here too and attack that weakness. I'm looking at Muth getting involved more. I'm looking at Roman Wilson finally getting his name up. I don't know about Van Jefferson, but if there's another target that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to get, Devontae Adams, at least get him on the phone and make him an offer, because we need that solid number 2 option right there to make this offense deadly and for Justin Fields' career to really take off here. So, in conclusion, this is a very winnable game for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. I believe we can come away with the W here. We have a lot of advantages that work in our favor for this one here. But at the same time, I am not underestimating the Dallas Cowboys. Because if you do, it'll be like the Colts last week, where they'll roundhouse kick you, they'll punch you in the face, and before you know it, you're going to be in a double-digit deficit. But you get Dallas in a deficit, you make Dak Prescott try and beat you, you make them run the ball early, you stop them in their tracks, you can win this game. We definitely have the type of team that can do that. We can put Dallas in a deficit. We can come up on the scoreboard. And we can get the job done in front of the home crowd, under the lights on Sunday night, and get the 4-1. And head on to the road to play another longtime rival of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Raiders next week. But yeah, that is my preview for this matchup here between the Steelers and the Cowboys. Obviously, yeah. I hate the Dallas Cowboys, right up there with the Ravens for my most hated team in the NFL. But I always look forward to playing the Cowboys pretty much every election year. Basically every election year, the Steelers and Cowboys play each other unless they finish in the same spot in their respective divisions the year before, the next even year, if that makes any sense. But basically, every election year, the Steelers and Cowboys go at it. Every leap year, we go at it. 2024 is a leap year. So that'll do it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I am Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.